Philadelphia Eagles select Devontae Smith, wide receiver, Alabama.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to Party on Broad. Today, we are breaking down a historic day, a monumental day for the Philadelphia 76ers. James Harden is a Sixer. Ben Simmons to Brooklyn, Mr. Sharman himself, and we are reacting. We're going to grade the deal, talk about winners and what it means for the Philadelphia 76ers moving forward. Joining me, I've got my man. He is Rob Lange. Follow him on Twitter at Philly_Menace. What's that, Rob?
This is a day, boys, and as an Italian, we drink our prosecco when we celebrate. So a little prosecco in the wine glass tonight, and look, I was on here the other day saying I love Seth Curry. I don't want to give up Seth Curry, but I understand the business of the NBA. I understand that this is a necessary move because, as everyone said, the Sixers now have two of the top 10 players in the NBA playing together. Yeah. And that's something that I think, and I know people, we'll get into it, but that's something that we have not had here since before I was born with Julius and Moses. We had two of the top guys. So it's just an exciting day, man. I am pumped for the rest of the Sixers season now. I'm back in.
Love it, baby. Also joining us, I've got the man, the myth, the legend. He is Tiago. What's up, Tiago?
What's going on, Chris? This is what a championship window feels like, man. I think we might have talked ourselves into a championship window in the past, thinking that Ben and Joel have made the leap, but I think the championship window arrived today. I think the Sixers are on the clock for this year and next year. And I think if you're a Sixers fan, you have to be excited because you have a guy who's playing at absolute MVP level, no questions asked. And you're pairing him with a top 15 player, perhaps even a top 10 player still in the NBA. That will get you places, man. And if I'm the Eastern Conference right now, I would be very scared of what the Sixers would put out there, especially with what they gave up. I mean, they gave up some pieces, but they also kept some pieces who I think are going to be very huge moving forward. So it's exciting, man. Very exciting.
Amazing, man. Also joining us, I've got my guy from Philly Sports Network. He is part co-host of the Pick Swap podcast. Please go check them out. Go subscribe. He is Sean. What's going on, man?
The day we've been waiting for such a long time is finally here. No more Ben Simmons in Philly. James Harden is finally here. Daryl Morey has captured his white whale. So great day all around. I could not be happier with today, how things unraveled, everything, and I'm all the way bought back in.
Yes, man. A lot of Sixers fans out there have been waiting for this ball to drop. Yeah. And we're going to break it down, starting with first impressions. Let's just look at the quick rundown of the stats so far this season. You've got 44 games from James Harden, 22.5 points. Oh, yeah, that's sorry.
Yeah, what's funny? Obviously Twitter is a cold-hearted app, but the people that were coming up, like Wells Fargo Center tweeted out something. The Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs waved bye to Ben. Like, people from all walks of life were just cold-hearted today. That's how much this has affected so many people in this area.
Yeah, let's go into first impressions. For me, and we'll grade the trade out of 10. For me, I'm just glad it's finally over. This is a trade 2 years in the making, and it's just a freaking relief to see that we can finally move forward, and get a new NBA jersey on such a Charmin soft NBA player, man. It literally sucked knowing this guy represented Philadelphia, man. Absolutely good riddance. It's just a relief this bum can be someone else's problem moving forward. I grade this trade an absolute A+. You just made a trade that legitimately opens the door for a Sixers championship. The Sixers went from literally running offenses through Tyrese Maxey, Seth Curry, Furkan Korkmaz to James freaking Harden. By far, the Sixers' biggest issue on this roster was the lack of a playmaker, the lack of a ball handler. We got that. But you also can go beyond that. What was our other biggest issue? we now have a closer. We now have a bucket getter in the fourth quarter. It's been a down year for James Harden, but he's got a 13.3 net rating in clutch situations in 21 games this year. For reference purposes, Joel Embiid is 0.3, Tobias Harris is negative 7.8, Tyrese Maxey is negative 5.8, and the best Sixer in clutch time this year is Seth Curry, who is now in Brooklyn at plus 1.9. The Sixers got significantly better with this trade. I'm psyched. A+. What about you, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, look, people in this, there are people that are just going to find things to complain about. I already see somebody down there saying the Nets won the trade. You have to take everything into consideration here. Ben Simmons was never going to play for this team again. So basically, if you look at it from that standpoint, for Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and 2 first-round picks that will not matter, you got James Harden. I know that Ben's going to play for him. And guess what? Ben's in a good scenario for him because he doesn't need to score the ball, right? But he was never going to play here, and that's the biggest part of this. Listen, I love Seth Curry maybe more than any 76ers fan. There's still a part of me that it feels like I lost something because I waited so many years to get the guy here. It only lasted a year and a half. But James Harden, a down year, because it is a down year for him, is 22 points a game. We would have loved for Ben Simmons to give 22 points a game to this team. It wasn't going to happen. It was never going to happen here. And the crying for Andre Drummond, listen, he's been a really nice story as the backup to Embiid. Come on, guys. it's Andre Drummond. Guess what? Now when we play Brooklyn, Joel Embiid can go back to doing what he's always done against Andre Drummond, and that's eat him up inside, because that's what's going to happen. It's an A+ trade. It's a great trade. And now I think the only question is what happens in the buyout market to fill some of these little holes that still, you would like to see filled on the bench as we go forward.
What about you, Tiago?
Yeah, so I think Rob touched on the point that when you factor in the fact that Ben Simmons was likely not going to play here, I think that's the absolute best thing the Sixers could have landed on. And you got to give Morey a lot of credit for staying his ground. You heard rumors around, Sabonis or De'Aaron Fox, and those players do not move the needle in the way that James Harden does. I was a little bit concerned because when the rumors started coming around about a possible Harden trade, names like Maxey and Thibault started getting thrown on the table. And when you're talking about a trade in a 2-year window, these players make a difference on your team. So what to me was paramount that he kept those guys on the roster while making the trade around the Harden and Ben infrastructure. So overall, you got to give Morey a lot of credit for staying pat and kind of putting a deal around those pieces. I will say this, Ben Simmons in Brooklyn could turn out to be a big problem because this guy fits this team tremendously well. He's going to play a role in that team that he did not play with the Sixers. He's not going to be asked to score. He's going to be asked to defend and play make. We've seen how Ben has defended James Harden in the past very, very well. So it's not a slam dunk that the Sixers won the trade, but it is a slam dunk that the Sixers made the right move to get a guy like James Harden, pair with Embiid, and kind of go from there. So overall, good job on both parts, I think.
What about you, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, you make a lot of very good points, Tiago, but I'm still giving it a A++ in my mind. I mean, this is what the Sixers have been waiting for, was just this caliber of player. And the James Harden was always the guy, especially in Morey's mind. This has always been what the holdout was for. And for everybody that was ready to ship Simmons off for Buddy Hield or whatever package of picks or everything, we got a legitimate superstar to pair with Joel Embiid for the first time in his career without touching any part of the long-term core. So I could not be happier. And the whole identity of this team has changed. It obviously complicates things that it's a interconference rival. But I'm just, when you think about the Sixers as a whole, they got massively better today, and it's a great day.
Absolutely. Pedro's in the house saying, hey, we have a first-timer. John is in the house. What's going on, John? Thanks for joining. Is Harden enough to get them a title? We will be talking about that in just a little bit. Hang tight. We've got a Nets fan in the chat, Tom, saying Nets won the trade. Ben, and another comment, Ben is going to cook the Sixers. Man, you know Ben is not going to play in the regular season against the Sixers.
Yeah.
What we need is a playoff series where he can't, hide his charming head in the sand.
Which you may not even get this year. Like, I feel like this was a trade the Nets made more so for next year because you don't know what the situation is with Durant and this knee. And, like, I mean, he was bold-faced asked, what's your status? And he said, I don't know. Like, yeah, just flat out, I don't know. So, I mean, you don't know what they're going to be. I mean, they've lost, 9 straight? They're playing well tonight because they're playing a Washington team who's selling everybody.
Yeah.
So, we'll see what happens. But calm down there, Tom.
RJ2K says the Sixers should partner with a mental health foundation and donate a portion of ticket sales for every single game Ben Simmons plays in Philly. I love that.
What does he mean by that? I'm interested to hear what his comments are on that. I mean, if we're going to go down that route, nobody knows what's going on behind the scenes. We can talk basketball. We're not going to talk mental health in this podcast.
Yeah. Modog says they both won the trade. Was great for both. So high grades for the Sixers in this move. Let's move on to the next question. Who was the biggest winner from the James Harden, Ben Simmons trade here? For me, it was Sixers fans when Ben Simmons has to play the Sixers in a 7-game series in the playoffs because there's going to be so many Frosties going down in that stadium. We're going to be eating good. No, I'm just kidding. Tyrese Maxey for me on the surface. Tyrese Maxey is going to get legit first-hand experience learning and playing next to one of the best pick-and-roll guards of all time. Tyrese Maxey averages 0.98 points per possession in the pick-and-roll as a ball handler, 83rd percentile. He's always been a terror as a gravity penetrator, elite at finishing at the rim. The idea of Maxey learning how to control that speed, and beat defenses with change of pace and becoming more crafty on all levels with the ball in his hands is just an unbelievable concept in my head. But then when you dig deeper, I think there's going to be a real trickle-down effect when it comes to lineup combinations, which we have been banging our heads here a lot lately over Doc's lineup combinations or inability to stagger appropriate lineups with the Sixers squad. The Sixers bench is 27th in the league in bench scoring. I'm hopeful that this trade will have this trickle down effect of Maxey getting more playing time with that second unit, which will be just a huge boost for this offense moving forward. And we got a special guest. My man Austin's been blowing up today. What's up, Austin?
Going on, fellas? It's always a pleasure. How are we?
We're doing pretty down in the dumps, I think, overall. No, I'm just kidding.
It's been a busy day, man. You've been quoted by every major news outlet today.
It's been a hell of a day. I was actually sick about 2 hours between 4 and 6.
Oh man,
beat from the day, but yeah, it's been a wild one.
What's your initial impressions of the trade, and how would you grade it, real quick?
I think the most important thing in all of this is that James Harden opted into his deal for next year. Why does that matter? Why is that important? Sure, there might be a behind the scenes non-binding agreement that he'll be extended on August 10th as soon as possible. But let's say that doesn't happen, right? Let's say they take this into next season. You are essentially being afforded a trial run of James Harden before extending him to a long-term deal. And let's say after next season, there's clashes with Embiid. It's not working. He looks older. He's checked out. You don't have to extend him. And then in that case, you open up money and free agency, and you can do other things. You have flexibility to do that. And it only costs you a guy who wouldn't play for you and 2 role players. And that opt-in, that singular decision to opt in, revives the longevity of this era of Sixers basketball. It truly does.
Well, how much would that extension go for? Almost like $300 million, right?
I believe it is something in the vicinity of $270 million.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. So I think that is the key point there. The Sixers get 2 years to look at Harden.
Now they very well might on August 10th, Woj bomb. They've signed him to a 5-year max. In which case, then it's over. There's no point. But you don't have to make that decision. You don't have to do that yet. And especially what is Harden going to do if he's upset you didn't offer him the extension? Ask out again, a third team?
True.
Like, come on.
Start the countdown now, Austin. He's
Right.
going to act out in like 12
Right.
months.
Yeah, this was by and large a monumental win for the Sixers, and they played it right down to the wire. They played it perfectly. They planted bombs along the way, and they really. I don't know whether Harden gave the Nets definitive wording here, but I would say that they certainly created the illusion or the image that, oh my God, we're not going to get him. So we're not going to sign him again this offseason. We got to get something for him now. And that is where they are right now.
Man. And I go back to Austin, your article like months and months and months ago about how Daryl Morey absolutely played it right. And here we are sitting on the cusp of just an amazing time for the Sixers, getting ready for the playoffs in the midst of an amazing season by Joel Embiid. I'm going to throw it to you, Sean. Who was the biggest winner?
Real quick.
Yeah.
My understanding is that the Nets wanted Thibault because they believed that if they got Thibault and Simmons, those would be two hardened stoppers on the wings that they could leverage in a series against the Sixers in the playoffs to try to, I guess, neutralize Harden's impact. And, that would be a sneaky thing. And I think the Sixers knew that. And that was why they went with the 2 first-round picks instead. One of which, by the way, there is a chance that pick does not convey, but rather turns into a second rounder plus $2 million in cash considerations. So all around, the Sixers played this right to the very last minute. All week we heard Thibault, Curry, Maxey, Drummond, this guy, that guy, picks, Ben Simmons. They got it down to 2 role players who are essentially replacement level players, if you will, Ben Simmons and 2 picks. This was an incredible win for the Sixers.
Yeah,
fully agree. What about you, Sean? Who was the biggest winner from this Sixers trade?
I'm going to give it to Joel Embiid for this. And just because I think Embiid has shown such faith in this franchise, in Morey, for the handling of this really difficult situation throughout the whole thing. And to end up being kind of rewarded in the end with this, I think is awesome for him. He deserves it. It's very cool. I think they're going to be great together. It's very exciting to see what these two are going to look like alongside each other. I really just can't wait to watch them in their first game. See some more pick and roll action between them. See what Harden looks like with a legitimate star big man. And also, when we think toward looking toward the playoffs, obviously there are some defensive concerns when we talk about on the wing and beyond with this team. But I think that the offensive workload that will be taken off Embiid by Harden being here will allow Embiid to dominate even more defensively, which I think will increase the ceiling of the Sixers team and overall just help the chances of winning. So I'm thrilled for everyone that this got done. I'm especially excited that we didn't have to touch any of the future core or any of the long-term pieces of this team. And I'm just couldn't be happier that it got done the way it did.
What about you, Thiago?
Yeah, so a couple points on defense, because the national discourse around Harden is the fact that he doesn't play defense. And that is actually could not be farther from the truth. One of the things that Harden does extremely well that the Sixers lack is the ability to defend size. So you replace a guy like Curry with a guy like Harden, who has played minutes at power forward and small forward with Brooklyn. That makes the Sixers more diverse defensively. So that's the key point there to call out. The Sixers need size the perimeter as defender. And he also averaged 8 rebounds a game. What is the thing that the Sixers lack the most this year so far is rebounding. So those two things should impact the Sixers positively defensively. Offensively, from the standpoint of what Sean talked about in terms of the mesh with Embiid, there are some fit concerns. We can talk about it in more detail, but you're talking about a guy who we've seen how many times we've seen Joel duck in the post and never get that pass, right?
Yeah.
I mean, now you got it hard, man. He can make that over-the-top pass. Yeah. If Joel wants to screen and roll, it's going to be right there in his pocket, ready for him to dunk. So the fit offensively, there's a lot of things to be excited about, obviously. But I would point to defense. Like, he's not a zero defensively, and he fits a couple of things that the Sixers drastically need that they didn't have with Curry and those guys. So keep an eye out for that.
Love it, man. What about you, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great point from the defensive side of things that Tiago just made, because as much as I love Seth Curry and his shooting, I mean, Kevin Huerter just stands out in my head from last year's playoff series. I don't think that happens as much per se to a James Harden. But I'm going to go with an underrated winner of this trade, Tobias Harris.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I said this to my dad today. Go.
Yeah.
Rob, I'll let you finish, but I have a rant too for that.
Yeah. And look, I don't know if it lasts beyond this season. If it does, great. But what this allows Tobias to do is be who he is, right? Like, as I said on the show, I think I said this to Sean and Dives. I said to you Monday, take the money out of it with Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris is an excellent third option. Tobias Harris doesn't stink at basketball like many would like you to believe. He doesn't stink. Like, he's a good player. But he was being asked to do so much, and not having been there crushed him this year. I mean, it really did. It hurt him, and he started to come on. But now he can just go play. He doesn't have to score 25, 30 when you have James Harden, Joel Embiid out there. He can go play his game and be Tobias Harris, that the good Tobias that we've seen. So to me, one of the biggest winners is this whole thing is a guy that now gets a little bit of pressure, a lot of pressure really, taken off of him, so he can go play and be Tobias Harris, not have to be the second option on a championship contender.
What about you, Austin?
So with Tobias Harris, this also kind of is adjacent to Seth Curry in a lot of ways. The reason that you have to include Seth Curry is because of how poorly Ben played in the playoffs, and this wasn't more of a 1-for-1 type deal, and he becomes a casualty of this situation, and he has to go to Brooklyn now and face Ben Simmons, as a teammate again, and try to get along with him and like him, despite knowing that he had to be included along in the package, which is the business, but I can't imagine a player likes that, being included in that trade. Tobias Harris, through the boos, the incessant booing, the constant criticism, the fact that nobody really appreciates his good nights, but they certainly love to tell you about his bad nights. He soldiered through it, and he kind of owned up to it all year long. He's coming on now, and I am happy for him. I'm happy for him as a person that he gets to take part in this experiment the Sixers are going to the Sixers are going to do, instead of being traded to a third-party team like Oklahoma City as a salary dump. I would think for him, he is very excited and very happy.
But here's the question: say the Sixers fail in the postseason this year.
Oh, then he's a guy.
Is he the next shoe to drop?
And I will tell you this:
Absolutely,
he's the winner of the next shoe to drop. 5 months.
If he
We don't
isn't the
know where
next,
it's going to go from there.
if he isn't the next shoe to drop, I can tell you who is. Doc Rivers.
Please. I was going there.
And I will tell you this: Doc now has no excuses for not for not staggering.
I better never see a full bench lineup again.
No.
Period.
And
Period.
I would even venture to say that the that the Sixers are probably best off putting Maxey on the bench, letting him run the second unit, starting Danny Green, starting Thibault, starting obviously Harris, Embiid, and Harden. I don't think Harden's coming off the bench. So I think for the purposes of gelling the team together and continuity and not compromising what Maxey is capable of doing, you put him at the second unit, you let him run the ball down everybody's throats, and then Harden does what he does.
Yeah,
Amazing segue there, Austin. Go ahead, Sean. Sorry.
Real quick, another guy that I think is a major winner of James Harden coming here is Danny Green. I think maybe excluding Tobias, Danny Green has been the biggest guy that's missed Ben Simmons. And to now have a guy that can distribute and just put a shot right into his shooting pocket and just so he can turn into a catch and shooter, doesn't have to dribble, doesn't have to create. That's what he's best at. And when he can return to the role of being the simple Danny Green, that's where he's the most effective. And I think we're going to see that again. He's going to be a perfect complement with the starters. So I think there's going to be a rejuvenation in Danny Green for the rest of the season.
How about Matisse Thybulle?
Yeah.
How about Matisse Thybulle? Like, the dude is 99, 98 percentile at cutting to the basket. He's been unstoppable anytime he cuts to the basket. He now has a legitimate point guard running this offense that's going to find him on the back door, cutting to the basket. You know, this could set up Matisse Thybulle as being a true impact player on this roster, man. Like, we've seen him just go through these like slumps and shooting slumps and just be pretty much a negative offensively. Like, this could be that little bump where Matisse becomes a major impactful player.
Can I just want to add, Chris? Sorry, Rob. Just one more point on Matisse, because like the way that Brooklyn uses a guy like Bruce Brown with Harden, screen and cutting, like they can use the same type of stuff with Matisse. And on top of that, like Matisse now becomes playable late in games, right? Because you have Harden. So you can have Matisse out there defensively because you have that extra shot creator, that extra ball handler on the court. Whereas they try to fit Matisse late in games with their lineups, but you can clearly see they were lacking ball movement, dribbling. So now you have Thybulle fully entrenched in your crunch time lineup defensively because you have that Harden Embiid dynamic. So he's definitely a winner for sure.
I just wanted to kind of throw in there about Danny Green. You know, I know he struggled a little bit this year, but I think a lot of the hate he gets is because of the comments he made. And that's because people forget so quickly that when he went out in the Atlanta series, to me, that was one of the biggest things with that Atlanta series. Like, I don't think they lose a series if Danny Green's veteran presence, leadership on the floor is there. I think that they find a way to win it, even with all the other nonsense that was out there. It's exciting to see them with another prolific scorer, another prolific player, because I think really we could go through the list of all these guys. They all benefit from that. I think everybody on this team benefits from that. Now we got to see if Doc will learn not to play the full bench lineup ever again.
I really thought that Furkan was going to be traded today. I really thought it.
Really?
Part of it was like stuff that I had heard, but still, like I was very considered. I was like, he ain't gonna be here. But I was wrong.
Again, man.
Furkan is my Nate Brown. If you guys remember,
of course,
Nate Brown lasted here for like 5 years and caught like 2 passes total, and you didn't have any like. He just seemed to always be here. Like, I don't think Furkan will ever leave. Like, they even tried to let him leave, and then they re-signed him. Like,
I would consider like a Reno Mahe.
Oh my
or something along that.
Or a Jalen Ray.
Is he busting a Chicky and Pete's too, like Reno used to in the offseason?
Let's roll on, guys, to what is our projected starting lineup for the Sixers now with James Harden. For me, it goes back between Thybulle and Danny Green. The Sixers are 11-4 when Thybulle plays 30 or more minutes per game this year. He's shooting 34.4% from 3 on 2.5 attempts when he starts. You talk about maximizing Embiid and Harden with corner threes. Danny Green is shooting 42.5% from 3 on double the attempts that Matisse Thybulle takes. So I know Danny Green has his haters out there, but man, like DG, he has a history of being a strong complementary piece when there's stars around him. So I'm going to play that politician role and say it depends on matchups for me. But either way, it's a win-win situation for the Sixers. I'm going to throw it to you, Austin, real quick. What's your starting lineup?
I would definitely go Danny, Thybulle. I don't know why I started with those two, but Harris, Embiid, and Harden. I think they're just so important. Number one, as quickly as you possibly can, get Harden and Embiid familiar with one another on and off the ball. So that way, you know, there's no hiccups come playoff time. And so if you have Maxey out there, there is a potential, you know, inclination to balance that you know, the ball handling duties there. And I also think that it's obviously best for Tyrese Maxey to come off the bench, so that way he can have some continuity within his role in the offense.
I love this comment from Anthony. No more point for Concord. Come on, let's fucking go.
Don't
Oh
do
my
that.
God, that is an amazing concept.
Let's see how Doc's gonna stagger these lineups.
Yeah.
I know. That's my biggest worry.
What about you, Rob? What's your starting lineup?
You know, I love Austin's starting lineup. I just don't think that Doc goes that route. I would love if he did. But for me, really, and I don't know, maybe this is just the former coach in me. It's not about what lineup starts a game. It's who you're going to have in there at the end of the game. And you know, the fact that no matter what, you're going to have James Harden and Joel Embiid on the floor. You know, you as you a lot of you guys have pointed out, you could play Matisse now at the end of the game because you have the scoring out there. I do think what Doc will probably start out doing is Maxey, Harden, Green, Embiid, and Harris. I think that's what he'll probably start out. But I don't know if this team, at least for the beginning until they figure it out, has a starting lineup. Like, it could be very situational. They may start Thibault in certain games. But like I said, I think if I could choose, I love Austin's idea. I love the idea of Maxey being the guy off the bench to run that second unit. Mike, because could you imagine you just went against Embiid and Harden? Now they go to the bench, and oh, by the way, here comes Tyrese Maxey, who is just a lightning quick, just to piss your second team off as well. I think that would be a great move for them if they went that route.
I also think that Maxey, like, he allows you to bridge the Harden aging to the next era of basketball if Harden is here long term. Because as Harden gets older, his role probably diminishes a little bit. You have a young Maxey there to sort of take the reins and resume the ball handling duties. You don't have to go look for a new primary ball handler.
Mm-hmm.
What about you? What about you, Tiago?
Yeah, I think first of all, Maxey should be very excited because you're talking about one of the best pick and roll ball handlers in the history of the game. So, I mean, that is an opportunity to learn, to study, to watch, to practice, to see it real time, just to be a full-blown sponge and be a better player than he already is. So it's a huge win for Maxey to have that in the building every single day. It's a massive win. Like Rob was saying, I'm focused on late in games. I could care less who starts, man. Who's going to close these games out against Brooklyn, against Milwaukee? And, like, the Sixers now have alternatives because if you want to close out defensively, you can go with Thibault and Danny Green. If you need another ball handler in the court, you can put Maxey on your lineup and kind of try to close it out that way. So these are alternatives that Philly never had, and now they have with Harden on the court. So for me, it's about more situational, where they're at, who they're playing, at what moment of the game, what is the moment of the series. But, you know, there's much evidence to suggest that Danny Green and Thibault together is a great starting duo. I think they're like a plus 34 net when they're on the court together. So I would kind of lean that route. But again, if you need offense, man, it's Maxey. He's your guy. So it's just exciting because you have alternatives, man. You can play with a lot of different things. So
Luka has 25 points in 10 minutes.
Who are they playing against?
I don't know. Probably the Sixers defense. Who knows?
What about you, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm pretty much on the same page as all you guys. And just to follow up on the Maxey point a little more, as much as we've asked of this kid already, like, and he is pretty much fouled up for the most part. Like, you can't be disappointed in what he's done by any extent. I think it's going to be very cool to just let him kind of slip back and just play free for a little bit and just not be so focused on being perfect, developing in the point guard. That for him to just be able to go out and play basketball for a little bit and be the spark, that's going to be awesome for him. That's going to be freeing basketball. And for a guy that we already know about his work ethic, how much he takes in, for him to be able to just look at the way James Harden reads a game or goes about his business is going to be you can't ask for much like anything better for him. This is pretty much like a dream guy to follow. And even when you go as far as like the step back jumper, like they have very similar kind of the way they set that up and the way their footwork works for that. So there's a lot of just very cool things that I think he can learn from. And we're definitely seeing the passing of the baton to Maxey throughout this. And there is kind of a bridge to gap so far as that Tobias's max contract will run out at the same time as Maxey's rookie contract, which is just about perfect in that regard as well.
Holy shit. Wow.
So there's plenty of just like a perfect timeline here when we talk about in the future. And then when we're talking about right now, like Maxey, we already know can make a positive impact on a winning roster. And for him to be like switched into like a 6-man where there's not as much expectation, I'm excited to see what that is. Cause I mean, I feel almost like guilty how much we've asked of this guy so quickly, and just like the bar keeps being raised. And shout out to Tyrese Maxey for continuing to produce, continuing to develop. But I think it's going to be great for him to have a little bit of pressure eased off him, and the Sixers are going to be better for it.
Yeah, just let him do what he does best. Attack. Finish at the rim. It's going to be awesome. This comment here from Raymond. Does Harden represent the Sixers during All-Star weekend? Charles Barkley, right before we went live, had probably one of the best moments of his career on TNT. Here it is right here. Let me play it for you. It was so freaking funny.
Is he hasn't played? Is he healthy? Who is that? James, he hasn't played. He got traded. He's healthy now.
Watch LeBron's reaction.
He's like, what should I say?
LeBron's reaction is the best part of the entire thing.
I gotta tell you, the fact that he even got a smile out of Kevin Durant shows how funny that moment was, because Durant did not want to laugh during this.
I know.
There are two things in basketball that I love, like, more than anything. It's number one is the guy making his first All-Star team. I think that's so cool. Number two is when they do the selection for the All-Stars and you see how the players, the opposite team captains, react to a guy getting selected, because that tells you how they feel about that player more than anything, and in its raw nature. And KD was so mad that LeBron got Darius Garland, and LeBron was so mad that KD got Ja Morant. And like, if you're them, that is like, I got to cloud nine. Like, those two respect me. That's fucking dope. Like, how could you not love that?
Well, Alex asked a question. Are we in this position today if Kevin Durant doesn't get hurt?
Interesting. I don't know.
Probably not. Yeah.
I don't know. You're probably not, but like I have a conspiracy that there's no, I don't have any sources or anything like that, but like, I think James Harden, when he was traded from Houston, I think if he had it his way,
He would have gone to Philly.
He wanted to come to Philly from the get-go. And I think what happened was he got, look, it wasn't going to happen. And then they sold him on this idea, look, you play with KD, you play with Kyrie. Honestly, I think the big reason this is happening is because Kyrie Irving is a jackass and is pulling this stance that he's pulling. And I think James Harden's like, what the hell? I came here to win. I got this guy part-time, and then to kind of, exacerbate that, then Kevin Durant goes down, and now James Harden's like, this was not what I was told I was coming to, and then, you see the Simmons situation, and I just think, I don't know if James Harden is enamored with Daryl Morey more, or if it's his respect for Joel Embiid, because I was listening to the radio today, and they were talking about, if you remember years ago when Joel Embiid was it might have been his second year, when he was out and he came back to play in an ESPN game against the Houston Rockets, and he balled out. They ended up losing the game, but it was a great, overtime game. Apparently, at the end of that game, James Harden left the court, with his arm around Joel Embiid. It was almost like he had this respect for Joel Embiid's game from that moment. And then once Daryl Morey came, it just was like, yo, I want to be there. I want to be in Philadelphia. And it came to fruition here today. But I think Kyrie's, stupid stuff has more to do with it maybe than even KD's injury.
And I think go, sure.
I also think Harden, recently specifically, he kind of had a moment where he looked up and was like, the reason that I demanded out of Houston is because I was sick of being the only guy and a bunch of scrubs kind of around me where I have to do everything. And then as he's looking up in Brooklyn with Durant hurt and Kyrie out most of the time, he's doing the same thing with guys on rookie deals and veteran minimums. And he's like, this is not what I signed up to do at this stage of my career. I was here to take a little bit more of a backseat, to be a little bit more of a complimentary role, and I'm still being asked to be the guy. And I think that rubbed him the wrong way. And the Kyrie in and out of the lineup affected Harden more than anyone else, because his complete role in that offense shifted whether or not Kyrie was there. And I do buy that Harden just did not think that was cool that he was just in and out like that, which is completely fair.
Yeah, I think we cannot underestimate Joel taking that leap as a superstar player and what that might have done to James Harden. Because I think at some point in Joel's career, he was kind of trending towards a very good star player. But I think that superstar leap might have been what gave James the trigger to be like, hey, man, this guy can win me a championship. And I think all credit goes to Joel Embiid, man. I mean, this guy has taken his game to new heights. He has lifted the franchise to new heights, and now he's attracting superstar talent in return. So he deserves tremendous credit for this, man. Absolutely.
And there was a recent article, you're on, I forget his last name, but there was a little.
Shout out Yaron. He's one
Weissman.
of the most underrated.
He's such an amazing writer, but like I didn't know how personable Daryl Morey is as a guy. Like he clearly has a huge relationship with some players. Did you get that vibe too? No, Austin. Like
my only in-person interaction with him, I went to shake his hand and he gave me a little pat on the shoulder and walked right by me. So that's all I know. He probably was trying. I mean, understandably, wow. Harden's wearing number 1.
Wow.
Really?
Yes. Love it. I love single numbers.
Cool. Yeah.
My son's getting a Harden jersey tomorrow. I don't care if it's for 6 months.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely getting my daughter a Harden jersey. There's no question.
All of my family today, by all accounts, everyone was excited to learn about James Harden. They were not happy to give up Andre Drummond. So I don't know if in the Krell family it's a win or a loss trade. I guess this is the product of being a reporter, is that you have to explain these things to people. But
yeah. All right. Let's roll on to our last question of the night, and that is a big one. Has the door opened for the Sixers to win an NBA championship? I'll throw it to you, Austin. What's your take?
Is the door open? Their chances improve. I wouldn't put them as a favorite. I would also not be so sure yet that they're a better team than the Brooklyn Nets are. I just don't know. Some of the variables are at play here, but their window is certainly open. I think more importantly, their longevity as a contending franchise in the era of Joel Embiid has been reopened and extended.
What about you, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I think the door is open. I think time will tell. I think, and I'm kind of curious what Austin thinks about the buyout market and who they could bring in here, because I think that's a major piece of this. I think, look, I'll be honest with you. I don't want Furkan Korkmaz and Shake Milton playing major minutes. I'm sorry. I can't do it anymore, man. I just can't.
Shake's actually been very, very good this year, I think. He's been quite good.
I just, you know what I think it is? I get stuck on guys, and once I have an opinion, sometimes I can't shake it. No pun intended.
Wow.
Well done.
Yeah.
But I think, look, does it open the window more? Yes. Or I believe that they are a better basketball team with James Harden on it, right? Like just on the surface. But, a lot of things have to come into play here. And I do think how they break down and get a couple guys off of this buyout market will be a major contributor to that.
What about you, Tiago? Oh,
I'll say something to say.
I'll tell you this. My understanding is that internally they're probably a little higher on Shake Milton than the public is what I would say. I think that probably speaks to why he hasn't been thought of as being included in more trades than you might think. But they're pretty high on him internally. And I think this year he's earned that reputation. But yeah, I just can't watch Furkan Korkmaz look like he's never touched a basketball in his life.
What about you, Tiago? Is the door open for an NBA championship for the Sixers?
The door is open. They're not favorites. Obviously, I think Phoenix and Golden State might be a little bit one step above. But that does not to mean that the Sixers cannot beat these teams. And I'm interested to see what James Harden they get for this season at least. Now, you've seen games where he kind of took over, and you've seen games where he kind of took a step back. So we'll see what they have. I will say this, on the buyout market, there's been talk about getting another point guard. I'm not big on getting a point guard because I think they already have enough ball handlers on the team. I want a wing that can shoot and defend. And the guy who I have in mind is Gary Harris from Orlando, so I hope the Magic buy him out. He's been great off the catch. He's a great defender. You put him off the bench with this group. Like you said, Korkmaz, take a seat, goodbye, and you kind of go from there. So I think they're like one more piece away on the bench to really be that kind of favorite on the East. I believe so. So we'll see what they do here.
Keep your eyes on Eric Gordon in the buyout market.
Eric Gordon.
Love it.
Yeah.
I just think,
love that.
I think as cheap as Tillman Fertitta is reputed to be, I think when you have a long-standing relationship with a player, you like to treat them well and abide by their wishes, so that way that player spreads your good reputation around the league. So I think if he wants out, they would buy him out, and I would certainly think that the Sixers would be in play.
Love it. Gary Harris, any interested? Let me go to Sean first, and then we'll continue that conversation. Sean, what's your thoughts on the Sixers as championship contenders?
Yeah, I think the championship window is absolutely open. I think the hardest part about winning a championship is getting that top level talent, and that's what they did today, was nail that down. And now, granted, the surrounding pieces are not fully complete. Like, I don't know if it's going to be this year. Sure, like when you think about, they would absolutely love to have more depth at backup center. They should have more depth at wing, things like that. But when you look at like the Eastern Conference specifically, things are wide open this year. I would definitely put the Bucks ahead of them as far as favorites in the East. But beyond that, I think that the Sixers now can compete with every team in that list. And personally, I would love nothing more than a Nets matchup in the playoffs. And I would love to sit on the opposite side of a Ben Simmons playoff matchup and see how that goes down again. So I think the Sixers are ready to compete. This is a huge step forward for that, and the buyout market will play a major role, but I think the time is now, and this was a major change because of that trade.
We all thought Jared Dudley versus Ben Simmons was like a massive story in the playoffs. Could you imagine Joel Embiid versus Ben Simmons?
Oh, yeah.
Like, that would just be the most epic, like, even not even on the court, off the court, on interviews, Twitter, Instagram. It would just be a show, man. That's what basketball's all about for me. I would have so much fun, man.
Yeah, both Harden and Embiid would both be in there like, we cannot lose to these guys mode.
Yeah, totally.
Austin, I know that you mentioned some of the wings. Are there any backup bigs that you see on the buyout market that could be, or are the Sixers content with going with Bassey in that kind of role at this point?
Keep your eye on DeMarcus Cousins, is what I would say.
And do not say freedom, please.
I have not heard that name, but I have heard the name DeMarcus Cousins. So,
and I also will say, Bassey is a perfect backup center for what James Harden needs.
Yeah.
Like, for a guy that can catch lobs, set picks,
and that is why the lob threat thing is exactly why Andre Drummond's expendable, because as good as like he was defensively at times, the real story was like what could he do on offense for this team, and he had no touch around the rim. He could screen and dive. That's really what Bassey can do. Is he has good instinctual tendencies around the rim, really good screen and diver. So
he will average 12 points a game in like 5 minutes with Harden.
Yeah,
just catching dunks, man. Just lobbing dunks.
I gotta ask this question because you guys follow the rest of the league even more than I do. Does Paul Millsap have anything left? Does he get any minutes on this team?
I think he'll play a little bit. He's for sure past his best days. I think he'll play a little bit out of necessity on this team, and that they will rotate him in. But I don't have as high of expectations as I think some people might.
What is Norvel Pell up to over at Utah? I don't even know if he's still on that Utah Jazz squad. But man, he'd be so fun to watch in the pick and roll with James Harden, man. That guy in the pick and roll was awesome.
He wouldn't get minutes.
I know.
Take Norvel Pell and put him with Jalen Reagor in a crate and seal that crate up and stop with your love affair with these guys.
Adrian's not going to like that one. I tell him what you just said.
I love me some Norvel Pell, man. I miss that guy so much. Oh, he was so great. All right, let's wrap it up here. I'm going to throw it to you, Sean. Where can we find you? Final thoughts on the trade. Floor is yours, man.
Yeah, great day for Sixers basketball. So the Simmons stuff that's been looming over all season is finally over. I think that's outside of getting Harden, which is obviously huge. I'm very happy to just put that to bed and to be able to look at the team we actually have in front of us. So huge sigh of relief there. And then as far as for checking me out, follow me on Twitter at Sean_Bernard1. You can check out all my written work at PhillySportsNetwork.com and check out the Pick Swap podcast for my own Sixers podcast. So we'll have our James Harden episode dropping tomorrow.
Love it. Pick Swap podcast. Go subscribe. Awesome Sixers content. Tiago, go ahead, man.
Final thoughts, man. Be excited. The Sixers are in this, man. That's all you could have asked for. Joel Embiid, man, he deserves a championship. He's got a chance now, and he's going to He's gonna do whatever it takes, man. It's gonna be very exciting to watch this duo together. Maybe not so much stylistically, but at the end of the day, all that matters is the W. So I'm excited, man. It's what we watch these games for. So and you can find me on the TPL. We do post game. Find me on Twitter. Find me whatever you want to find me. That's even no longer my Twitter handle, so I got to make sure I change that.
Some random guys get a spike in Twitter followers.
Just be excited, man. Sixers are in this.
Man, it's gonna be a ride. It's gonna be a ride. What about you, Rob?
Listen, the next 4 months are going to be fun, man. I mean, and that's really, I think, all we wanted all from this season. Now that the Simmons saga is done, it'll be fun to see how the buyout market plays out. It'll be fun. And I don't know. I mean, I just don't know the answer to this, but I have, just by chance, my 10-game season tickets package. I have Tuesday night's game against Boston. I would be elated if James Harden is playing on Tuesday night against Boston. That would really, really make me super, super happy for the night after Valentine's Day. Because I can show my love for my Valentine, James Harden.
Jeez, I'll make sure to delete this part tomorrow morning. Austin, real quick, this comment by Quinn is funny. DeMarcus and Joel slapping each other's butts would be awesome. But anyway, real quick, Austin, is there any indication idea of when Harden will play his first game with the Philadelphia 76ers?
It's a good question. Last time I checked the trade call timeline, like when they have their trade calls to make it official with the league, believe it is usually next day, and they typically, if my understanding is right, they usually don't do trade calls on weekends. Given that a lot of teams consummated deals today, tomorrow is probably gonna be pretty backed up in the league office. So I don't know that they'll officialize it tomorrow. They might try to put a priority on that one because it's an important trade, obviously. My guess is tomorrow or Monday is when it becomes official with Harden's debut. I'm speculating here. I don't know. But Tuesday versus the Celtics would be a date I would.
Don't get me excited, Austin. I'm coming at you if he doesn't play, by the way.
Get excited.
The entire world. And please, for the love of God, for the home for when the beat reporters are at home watching the away games, can we get one Mark Zumoff game?
Yeah.
Harden, just one. Listen, I love Kate Scott. I think she's great. I think everyone likes to talk and be mad about everything. I think she's very good at her job.
Yeah.
Zumoff, for as much shit as he's seen with this team and this franchise, deserves to call a James Harden game.
Absolutely. Well said, man. Marky Mark said
one more point, because Austin gave us a lot of good information. So stop spending $200 for your OKC ticket tomorrow. All right, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, I don't think he's playing tomorrow. I can't report this. I'll leave it off.
Do not spend $200 to watch the Thunder come to town, please. Don't.
Marky Mark says March 10th is going to be Nets at Philly. There is a negative 1,000% chance Ben plays a regular season game in Philadelphia.
I've heard otherwise so far.
Really?
I've heard otherwise.
Oh my God! I can't even that. That will be that might be.
The fans will get a frosty, medium frosty, and a medium fry because he'll miss 8 in the second half. They're gonna actually have to supersize it if that's even still a thing at Wendy's.
That's the game of the year. That's the game of the year in the NBA.
I can't promise it, but from what Ben's side has told me, I think it's more possible than
that's insane.
That is crazy.
We have a comment towards Tiago. Tatum is going to ruin James Harden's intro.
Comedy hour.
Sarcasm. That is obviously sarcasm. Austin, where can we find you? Final thoughts on the trade.
I think it's a great trade. They got what needed to be done. I was so sick and tired and nauseous and going blind from telling people that they were not just going to get a second-round pick for Ben Simmons. They were not just going to get, De'Aaron Fox or Buddy Hield and Harrison Barnes, whatever you want to call it. They waited. Morey played it perfectly to a T, and they got a trial run on James Harden for the cost of a guy who wouldn't play for them and 2 replacement-level role players. So, very good deal. Good day for the Sixers fandom. I am very grateful that I get to cover this team in person my first full season and have this happen. So I'm excited and I'm blessed for that opportunity.
Sixers did just announce James Harden on Twitter, by the way.
Let's go.
Well, that means that the trade that they can announce it, but the trade call not necessarily hasn't taken place yet.
Gotcha. Yeah, still good to see it pop across the screen for sure.
Man, it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling, an amazing day for Sixers fans. Hold on, Ala. This stretch here to finish the season is going to be a lot of fun. Follow my man Austin, my man Rob, Tiago, and Sean on Twitter. Check out the Pick Swap podcast. Check out all of Sean's work at Philly Sports Network. My man Austin is on the grind here for the Painted Lines, writing every single day, seemingly, for the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm sure, Austin, for real, like, you got to be so ecstatic. Like, you're on the grind. That is a true grind, and that's got to be light a spark, right, for you?
What I would say is, as much as the media, myself included, tried to remain objective and cool with it, I would say there was a lot of excitement in the building today by media and team alike, is what I would say.
Love it, man. I love it. All right, thank you everyone for watching. Smash that subscribe button if you love the Philadelphia 76ers. Of course, we'll be back tomorrow night for post-game live, as we do. Follow everyone here and stay awesome, everyone. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace, everyone.
Third down. Hurts keeps. Hurts cuts. Hurts has the first down. And Jalen Hurts. But it just put it away for the Eagles.
The Philadelphia Eagles select Devontae Smith, wide receiver, Alabama.